Then we went to the Middle East. In fact, we started yesterday. Yesterday night I started with an informal dinner with the former Israeli Prime Minister Olmert and the former Palestinian Foreign Minister Al-Qidwa to hear about their peace plan, which is a ray of hope in these dark times. Sitting together, Palestinian and an Israeli former officials, former president of one country, former foreign minister of the other, to talk among them and to put on the table plans for building peace is such a rare thing that we have to use all opportunities in order to make peace advance. We did a lot, and I want to thank the Special Representative of the Council for the work done in order to sit in the same table together with the people of my cabinet, in order to sit in the same table civil society from Palestine and Israel. There is such a lack of empathy for the sufferances of the other that it's important that we make people understand that peace will come one day. And this peace has to be prepared and pursued. We did that in Barcelona. We did that in Brussels. We will do it again. Every time an opportunity comes, let's talk about peace. We discussed what else we can do in order to create public support and momentum to return to the path of peace. And our guest yesterday reminded us how close the parties came to an agreement at that time, many years ago, 2008. But then the history turned in the other direction. Peace was not possible. And the war continued. And now we have a moment in which we have to look for all our forces in order to avoid the destruction and the tragic circumstances that are being supported by the people in Gaza and Lebanon, by the hostages still not being released, with the apocalyptical situation in Gaza, where 70% of the death toll is being paid by children and women. 70% of the casualties are children or women. In Lebanon, 100,000 houses destroyed. In Gaza, 2 million people from one side to the other of the strip. The most frequent age of the casualties in Gaza is 5 years old. The most frequent age of the casualties in Gaza is 5 years old. This is a war against the children. This is something that you cannot explain the suffering of the people, starting with the remaining hostages and following by the tens of thousands of people suffering the worst possible conditions. Listen to the UNRWA head. Listen to Lazzarini. Listen to everyone who has been able to get news from what's happening in Gaza in order to understand what's going on. And that's why I propose to the Council to suspend the association agreement with Israel. More specifically, the part that falls into the exclusive competence of the Council, knowing that the Commission has not proposed anything after Spain and Ireland asked for a study how much Israel is fulfilling their obligation according with the Association Council. And I presented a report done by our Special Representative for Human Rights, and he presented a proposal. Most of the member states considered that it was much better to continue having diplomatic and political relationship with Israel, so the decision was not taken into consideration, as expected. But at least I put on the table all the information produced by United Nations organizations and every international organization working in Gaza and the West Bank and in Lebanon in order to judge the way the war is being waged. We discussed also about UNRWA, the legislation adopted by the Knesset that we have condemned strongly, considering that the role of UNRWA is irreplaceable, but without saying how it will be replaced. We discussed about the sanctions proposed against Hamas and against the violent settlers, against the people who are attacking the Palestinians in their houses and their lands in the West Bank. The West Bank remains on the brink of Israelis' operations and settled violence. It has not been an agreement, not yet, but I hope that, by the way, following decisions taken today by the Biden administration, the member states will reconsider the proposals I made about some extremist shelters by their illegal actions in the West Bank. We also considered the consequences of the ruling of the International Court of Justice about the economic relations with the illegally occupied territories, which are under a system of labeling in order to identify them coming from these illegally occupied territories, and member states will decide if they consider taking more actions according with this ruling of the International Court of Justice. On Lebanon, member states were considering a ceasefire, asking for it to take place quickly, considering the massive displacement of close of 1 million people, widespread destruction of civilian infrastructure, and surging civilian deaths at a level that cannot be tolerated. All in all, Lebanon, West Bank, Gaza, hostages, the peace process has to be revived. And the Global Alliance for the Implementation of the Two-State Solution that we launched in UNGA, that was having a meeting in Riyadh, will have a meeting on the 28th November, my last day in office here in Brussels. Because the key word is implementation, not just recognition, not just expressing wish, but implementation. Doing something for this to happen. Otherwise, it will be words that brings nowhere. And we need to go somewhere. We need to go for a settlement, for that solution of this endless crisis that so many sufferances, so many people losing their lives on these last 5 years.